Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to talk about how you can become an extraordinary writer. Now, this, my hope is your goal. I mean, if you're writing and you're really trying to break into this industry, or if you're trying to get movies made, you know what? The better you're writing and the more you understand, the more successful you'll be. But having said that, what I'll tell you is that most people get to the point of being good and haven't figured out how to get to great, haven't figured out how to really truly accomplish what's possible for them. So let's just talk about this real quick. What are some of the best ways to master writing? And I wrote up a whole bunch of the normal ones here. Write every day. Yeah, I think that's good. That will get you to good, right? Every day. Depending upon whether you do anything else besides that, you may actually get to where you're pretty good. Having better strategies makes a huge difference because a lot of times a new strategy can take you to a new level. Building the habits of great writers. And this might mean things first, write every day, but also things like when you're writing a first draft, you're not trying to edit the words because a first draft isn't the final draft. Some of the other habits might be looking, continually questioning your characters, continually looking for something deeper, right? There's a whole bunch of habits that great writers have that we need to develop after we've learned the basics. Getting feedback absolutely can make a difference. Although I will say there's about a third of the writers who get feedback end up getting shut down. So you need to be careful about your feedback sources. So just keep that in mind. Taking a class on a skill you need. Of course, I highly recommend this. But the reason why is because if you can create a better model, if you can actually add to your screenwriting model with something that takes it to a new level, in just one class, it might make a huge difference. Working with pros. There's two sides to this one. Well, first, if you can get to a pro, but one of the sides is, you know what? The good side of working with pros is that they have some amazing insights. The bad side of working with pros is that it's pretty easy for them to become kind of hypercritical. They're expecting professional stuff, and if you're not bringing that to the table, you're in trouble. So this is like, I think this is kind of the normal way to think about how to master writing. And over time, if you just kept going and kept going and kept going, sooner or later you'll get there. One of the A-list screenwriters I interviewed, I said, so you made that big deal with the studio, and that really started your career. And he says, yes. And I said, so how many scripts did you write to get there? And he said, 25. We had a live audience in that one. Everybody in the room gasped, right? Because it's like, oh my God, he had to write 25 scripts. And I said, was there anything you could have done to have gotten it earlier? And he says, yeah, if somebody would have just told me what I was supposed to be doing. Now, he was a guy who just kept going and kept going and kept going. But I'm going to tell you, there are a lot better strategies. I've also talked with A-list screenwriters who wrote 3 scripts and got there. And they were using completely different strategies and come from a different background and that kind of thing. But part of our objective tonight is to take a look at this from a different perspective. So first, let's just look at the differences, because this is what I was looking for when I interviewed all those A-list screenwriters. Let's start with a normal writer. And this is the story I hear from 95% of writers when I ask them how they wrote their script. An idea came to them. And this is, by the way, this is the way I wrote my first 5 scripts. an idea just came to me. I then sat down and wrote the script, and however I was doing it at that point. And just to be clear, early on, I was just jumping into writing. I skipped outlining, I skipped writing out my structure, all kinds of things in the very beginning, and then had to come back and fix the structure. uh, you know, but as I went, I started adding more processes to this. The other part, most people are just thinking of it from this perspective. How do I write and then get feedback? But the other part is the writer. How much are you improving with every script? And again, early on, I was learning a lot in the beginning. In the first maybe 3 scripts, I learned structure, I learned character, I learned, I at that point I still wasn't outlining yet. But there were a bunch of other things. I learned some things about dialogue and what was on the nose and improving for like the first 3 scripts. But what I've seen is that a lot of people get to that point and then they just write. I was talking with one guy who had written 8 scripts, hasn't made a deal yet, hasn't won a contest yet. And I said, so what's your process? And he says, well, I just kind of come up with my characters and my idea and I just start writing. And it's like, okay, so he's still back where he was at script number 3. And I asked him to tell me how much he had improved between script number 7 and script number 8. And he says, well, I like the story better. My dialogue might have gotten a little better, but it was like, might have. So he had stopped focusing on improving who he was as a writer back at script 3. I've heard that story from a lot of different people, because when they got to where they could write and they could do it well enough, they just went, all right, I'm good. I'm there. Now I just want to focus on my words and my story. But this is something that really you want to be doing all the time. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then feedback. Most people get feedback on their final draft or something very close to it. I know lots and lots of writers right now that write their script. They might get feedback from another writer, but I'm talking about higher level feedback here. They'll often wait until they think that it's good enough, and then they'll hand it to a script consultant. If the script consultant doesn't give them a recommend on coverage, they'll make the changes that they suggest, give it back to them until they get a recommend. And that's a strategy. Now, that's an okay strategy. It is a better strategy than just not doing it and submitting it to contest without thinking about it. But let's go a little further. So when I was interviewing these A-list screenwriters, I wasn't asking them, hey, tell me what it's like to work with Johnny Depp or what it's like to work with Tom Cruise or any of those kinds of things. I'm not asking those kinds of questions. I'm looking for their process. I'm looking for what do they do that's different than everybody else? What is it that's happening at a higher level, and who are they in that situation? So the idea, instead of an idea just comes to them, they brainstorm until they have a marketable idea. And I've actually interviewed writers who have had almost every script they've written made into movies. And they said they did a lot of brainstorming in the beginning. I talked with one guy who says I usually brainstorm between 10 to 30 ideas. And then he says of those, the ones that are good, then I turn them into a treatment. And if I like them in the treatment, then I write them. And it's like, okay, he's going through a selective process before he takes a step. If we just stopped right here and said, what if you, instead of doing this, what if you just stepped over and did that? You had some criteria for what makes it marketable, and you just made sure every script you wrote was marketable. Just that one thing might change your whole life. Really, that might give you the opportunity to come in with projects that are so easy to pitch because you came up with something great in the beginning. Let's go to the second thing. On their writing, A-list writers, and let me set this up so it makes sense. I'm doing these interviews, and at one point we had a group come to town, and all we did was interview A-list screenwriters. And I can't remember, I think we interviewed 15 of them. But as I'm doing the interviews, I'm noticing they are thinking differently. They see things, they see writing in a different way than most people do. They see story in a different way. They see character in a different way. And I had this realization after years of interviewing these guys, and I just kept thinking, what is it? What is it that's making that work? It's not just that they're like they're smarter, because they don't come across as smarter. They come across as writers who had, and this is what it comes down to, they had some major insights and breakthroughs that they operate out of. So where everybody else is writing through what they just learned, they either took a class or they read a book or something like that, and they went, okay, I'll do those things. The A-list writer is writing through insights and breakthroughs. That's what they're creating through. Now, think about this. Average stuff having to do with, say, structure, for instance, right here. There we go. There's average. Breakthrough means you had this whole new insight. You saw it in a completely different way, and you went, oh my God, that's what I should have been doing all along, right? These guys and women are writing through all those oh my God moments that they've had, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. And they're talking through that. That's why when they say something to an audience about how they generate ideas or how they create characters or structure or whatever it is, they blow them away. Their everyday way of thinking is at a much higher level. And the reason why isn't because they're smarter than you or me. The reason why is because they kept searching and looking until they had those breakthroughs, right? If this isn't already blowing you away right this second, I'm telling you, it's the difference. It is one of the biggest differences. If you can get to where when you create a character, you are creating out of breakthroughs that you didn't have a year ago. If you can do that, you're going to have better characters. You're going to have significantly better characters. So the difference, and this part of it has to do with this right here. They are constantly elevating who they are as writers. Now, let me tell you something about this. We had one class, a 6-month-long class, writing incredible movies, where we had a pro come in, somebody who he had been out of the industry for a couple of years because of illness. He went back and he said some things had changed and he needed to be able to see it in a different light. And he asked me if that class would help him. And I said, I think so. You're a pro. You've already been in the industry. That class is designed to change people's lives who haven't been in the industry. But if you came in and you were searching for breakthroughs on a regular basis, I think it might make a difference. Let me know if you have any problems along the way. So every day at the top of their lesson, their assignment, they would write the words, what I learned during doing this assignment is. And here's what I saw. Most of the people were saying what I learned is, and then they would just say one thing and it'd be short and to the point. But this professional writer, who he'd already had 7 movies made, every single day he was having breakthroughs. Every day. Reading the exact same material, listening to the exact same audios, watching the exact same videos as everyone else. What was the difference? First, he knew that was his job. He never said it, but I mean, unconsciously, he knew he had to have breakthroughs to stay at the top. And he was looking for one when he came in. But second, he was constantly elevating who he was as a writer. Now, at the end, I had a conversation with him about it. I interviewed him in front of the whole group. And I said, so, wow, I showed the group 3 or 4 of his, what he learned that was listed at the top. And I said, man, I read through those and I had breakthroughs just reading the things that you learned. I said, so what motivated you so much? And he said this, and this is where this comes from. He said, well, he says, I'm in the industry. I am up against other pros. And he said, the level at which I get paid, the level at which I get hired is based on who I am as a writer. So he said, I've got to keep elevating it. So he had a higher motivation because he was up against higher competition, right? But it's like, these 2 things right here just make a huge difference. And actually all 3 of these make it just a crazy difference in the level of your success. When I talk to writers who have just finished a script and I say, how much did that improve who you are as a writer? Most of them give me very little response because they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the words on the page. They're thinking about what they just created. They're not thinking about how they improve themselves as a writer. So now some of you are, I know that, but if you can just up it to that degree, it'll change everything. And then feedback. Here was the difference on feedback. You know, while most writers are only getting feedback on that final draft, maybe a couple of drafts, the A-list screenwriters, most of them have a manager, are getting feedback on every single draft. And they're actually getting feedback on the concept, they're getting feedback on the characters, feedback on the structure, and then on every draft. So at every step here, they have upped their game, and that's why they're at the top. Now, I'm not saying that you have to give up your life and do this kind of thing, but just consider the strategy I'm about to give you. You know, it's like in time, you could absolutely get there. Let me say one last thing before I give the strategy. I asked every one of those A-list writers in front of the audiences that we had. I said, so let me ask you something. If you went back and looked at your first script right now, what would you think of it? And here was the most common answer. It's terrible, horrible, awful. And then we talked about how they went through and went from terrible all the way to A-list, right? Because that's the kind of stuff I'm interested in. I'm interested in what do you need to do inside the industry? We learned a lot about that, but I'm even more interested in what causes a writer to go from good to great. This is what I've focused on for decades as I've been doing these interviews and interviews with producers and managers and agents and everybody else. So let's come over here. Let's talk about this new strategy. And I'll be showing you in just a few minutes. I'll show you the our new system that is designed to help you get where you want to get. But here's our new strategy. First, instead of just going with an idea that just comes to you, what if you brainstormed 3 to 10 different projects? And in this case, we're talking about using AI so you can do it quickly and pick the best of 10, right? Just right off the bat. You know, you come up with an idea pops into your mind, you go over, you brainstorm the entire project. And the way we've got a model for brainstorming the entire project, which has your concept, your characters, and your structure. So you can see how the whole story works before you decide if you want to write it, right? I hope that makes sense. Now, if you were to brainstorm 3 to 10, and this is what we're having people do before they even come into our major classes right now, we're having them brainstorm as many as they can and then pick the best of those so that right off the bat, they're writing the best of 10 instead of the best of 1. You have lots of ideas pop into your mind, turn those into projects, pick the best of 10, and you're coming in at a significant advantage over where you were before. Then in the writing, write the script. And in this case, I'm suggesting that you choose the perfect class to write it in. So if, and I know you're going to think this is like self-serving on my part, but don't worry, you'll see in a couple of minutes, we're going to set it up so it's really easy for you. If the script is a thriller, you take it through our thriller class and you make sure it really delivers on the genre, right? If it's an action story, you take it through the action class. If you want to actually sell your movie, you take it through the Writing Incredible Movies class or whichever. And in the midst of it, you aren't just elevating the script, but you're elevating who you are. And part of how you're going to do it, and this is part of our new system, is by getting feedback on every single lesson. So every lesson that we present is something that gives you new insights, that gives you the strategies you need to succeed. But at the end of the lesson, you apply it to the project you're working on. And now we have a method where you can get feedback on every lesson. So that improves who you are as a writer while improving what you're writing. And then finally, from just a full out feedback perspective, I want you to be able to get feedback on character, structure, outline, and every draft. So let me walk you through how to do this real fast. Just a second. So this is there we go. This is our Screenwriting Mastery membership that gives you a chance not only to master screenwriting, but to get as much feedback as you want. So let's come over here just for a second. Start here. We're going to add a couple of things to this, but right here you'll see how to create a project in 8 minutes. And this is, you start with an idea and a genre, and it creates the concept, the structure, and the lead characters. And then you work with those. You don't just take what it gives you and say yes to it. You work with them to make it yours and to make sure that it's something that fits what the story that you want to tell. Now, these are the classes, by the way, all the way across the top here. If you want to write a screenplay, you go to this one and open it up, and you'll notice, here we go. Here's Writing Incredible Movies. This is a 100-lesson class that will take you from 0 all the way to having a script that really does have a chance in the industry. Here's a bunch of our 30-day classes. We have some 10-day classes that focus and help you get what you want. If you need to improve your first 10 pages or your dialogue, here's the advanced dialogue class, right? And then there's a bunch of analysis down here and other videos that can help you. If you need to write a TV series, you go here. If you want to master a genre, you go to this one and select one. If you need to get an agent or a manager, you go here and select the classes that will help you. We have very specific classes that can give you a serious advantage there. If you're just trying to make money with writing, here's where you go. But let's pause. I'm gonna take you to, well, here, let's go to get feedback right now, just so you can see. I'll get back to the classes in just a second. Feedback. We have spent a massive amount of time, over a year, designing this. I've spent God knows how much money on programmers to get it, but we have it set up where you can get feedback on a whole bunch of different things. These are my feedback sessions right now, by the way. But let's just look at the feedback. First, here's the full script feedback. It's down at the bottom of the page there. You can get feedback on a feature screenplay, on a TV pilot, on a TV episode, on your TV Bible. Whatever you need on that, you can get feedback. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes and you've got it. You can get feedback then on some of the smaller parts, on your characters, so that you are specifically dealing with characters that work for your project, that are amazing. And I'll show you, maybe I'll show you some character feedback in a moment. You can get feedback on your structure, on your outline. So notice these are basically all the things that you would normally get feedback from a manager on if you're working with the manager. And then we have some others. We have amazing opening scene feedback. I might show you one of those. We also have protagonists versus antagonists. This one, you put in the character profiles or a summary of both your protagonist and your antagonist, and then it compares them to the concept and gives you feedback on how to improve them. This one is, it's like mind-boggling because most people start their script thinking from one of two perspectives. Either they're writing it from the protagonist perspective, or they came up with a great antagonist and they're writing it from that. But both of these two actually work together to make your script the best it can be. So what if you were able to get the kind of feedback that would tell you, how do you elevate both the protagonist and the antagonist to improve the entire project, right? Now, let me take you over and show you just a couple. Well, here. Yeah, let's do this. Let's see. Oh, okay. Let's go to the class first. So this is one of the classes. Let's see. This is the thriller genre, mastering the thriller genre. If you were taking this class, you're in the middle of it. You'll see this is day 6, crafting the mystery sequence. So a thriller is about mystery, intrigue, and suspense. So this is just the mystery part, day 6, right? Now, you'll notice on the left-hand side here, it's got the lessons listed, and then it says AI. This is another one of the things we spent a lot of time designing a system that would give feedback on every single lesson. So here's how this lesson goes. And by the way, we have videos inside this, we have audios, we have a bunch of different things, but here's how this lesson goes. First, it tells you what a mystery is, right? Then it talks about the main structure of a mystery. How do you create mysteries? How do you create mystery chains, which some people don't even know exist. And finally, we get down here, and it talks about red herrings. We get down here to the assignment. And the assignment is for our project, whatever project you're creating, it just asks you to tell the concept, the lead characters and their roles, and then answer these questions, right? So what's the big secret that the villain is covering up? And you're answering the question because you want to get feedback from AI on this. So let me show you how this actually works. Here's a project I'm working on. There's the concept right there. Here's the main characters. There's 2 main characters, Dr. Evelyn Hart and Michael Torres, Captain Michael Torres. I'm not going to tell you about the project, but the first thing it asks is, what's the secret that's covering up? And then it tells. Then it says, how many ways can they cover this secret? Right? And so I've given a list of the ways I think. Then it asks me to give my mystery chains. So here's mystery 1, here's mystery 2, mystery 3, and mystery 4. Those are all things I just thought of while I was doing this lesson. And you put that in, and what happens is you'll go over here, you'll click the blue button, up will come a little window, you'll fill it in with all this stuff, which if you look at it, it's about a page and a half. And then within a minute, it gives you feedback. So it says first what you did well, and here are some of the things that I did well on that one. And then it says improvement. And this one has given 5 ideas for improvement. Its job is to give you 3 to 10. And when I looked through these, first thing I saw was while the red herring is well established, ensure that Evelyn's actions cast some doubt on her innocence. And at that moment, I had a breakthrough on my story. I had been writing this from the perspective of Evelyn, my lead character, being an innocent victim, instead of setting it up so that she's a real player. And so that maybe she's not completely innocent. I hadn't thought about that up to that point. I actually, when I saw that, I made a note of about 4 different ways that I could present her that would have her actually be not quite so innocent, but also be the possible one who did the crime in this situation. There were a couple of others. Relationship dynamics between these characters. I hadn't yet sat down and thought about this. I'm in the early stages, right? I'm just creating this as I'm going. So that was good. While the mystery sequence is good, it can benefit from a clearer indication of how each mystery impacts Evelyn's journey. As soon as I saw that, I took each mystery and said, how does that impact Evelyn's journey? So it's, in some cases, this is tough. It gives you reminders. In some cases, it points to something you're missing. In some cases, it might not be correct, or it might be like, well, so what? It tells me here to avoid overly complicated scenarios. Right now, I don't think my scenarios are overly complicated, but maybe. But out of this, I ended up saying yes to 3 of these, and I wrote up 7 different ways to improve the outline that I'm working on right now from the perspective of being a thriller. Now, this is what I'm talking about when I say use the classes as a way to not only improve the script, but also improve who you are as a writer. Now, let me take you to the next one. Back to this. So we're looking at, feedback section, get feedback. Here are all the things that I've done. I want you to see this one, protagonist versus antagonist, because this is really interesting. So just a second. There we go. So by the way, you put your information in, and in this case, you're going to put in the genre and the concept, right? And then you're going to put in the profile, the character profile for the protagonist, and the same for the antagonist. If you don't have a profile, you just use a summary. But here's what this gave me. This is on a different project. First, it said, what works? Now, I've worked on this project quite a bit, so it's a little better than the other one. But it gives me a whole bunch of things that work. I won't talk about those right now. Let's go down here. Ideas for improvement. It gave me 10 ideas for improvement. That usually means I've got some work to do. And what I hadn't done yet, I had not compared my protagonist to the antagonist. So this part is brand new to me. So in this case, my protagonist, what's her emotional attachment? That's actually kind of good. In this situation, there's something she really is deeply emotionally attached to, and I just wasn't thinking about that. But this, Mark, who's the antagonist, Mark's humanity, I've just got him being just the most awful person. So maybe I need to add some of that. I don't have any direct confrontations and this is a TV pilot. I don't have any direct confrontations between the two in a pilot. I need to add those. I absolutely agree. I'm not sure if I want to put in backstory or not, but I do need to create more unpredictability. And then down here, alliances and betrayals. So the ones that I just talked about, those 3, I wrote up after getting this feedback in like minutes, 10 different ways I could improve this pilot. And this isn't giving me feedback on the pilot. This is giving me feedback on my protagonist versus my antagonist. And it just elevated it so much. I was just shocked how much of a difference it was. And there were a couple of things in there. I was like, wow, why aren't I thinking about that? So that adds to who I am as a writer. That has me now start to create in a better and a stronger way, right? That's important. Now, let me just show you just a couple more pieces of feedback so you can just see how this works. Just a second here. Yeah, let's take this one. So this is a full feature screenplay. And all we did in that case, this is a script written by a friend of mine, Kevin. All we did in that case was put in the genre, the concept, who the protagonist and antagonist is. And you'll notice the only thing that was put in was the protagonist's first name and the antagonist's first name. And here's the feedback that it gave us 5 minutes later. So it gave us feedback on concept and main conflict, and then a list of ways to improve that. So you want to first you want to look for, what do you agree with? Yes, okay, it got what I was saying there. And then what do I need to improve? If I agree with that, what I do when I'm working with this is I copy it and I move it over to a Word document that has my new to-do list. Second thing I want you to notice is it gave us character profiles for both the protagonist and the antagonist. Now, let me get out of the way so you can see this. We've got, all we said was his name is Joe. That's all we said. It gave us the role in the story, his core traits. Joe is honorable, determined, skilled in combat, but haunted by his past actions. Okay. It gave us what his motivation was, his want and his need. It gave us his flaw and his wound, his secret and his hidden agenda, his internal dilemma, and then it gave us at least one idea for improvement. It did that for both characters. So if you've ever gone to a script consultant and you thought, I don't even think they read my script, or they didn't really get these characters or that kind of thing. When you get this, immediately you can tell first that it's read your script and that it knows it. Is all of this stuff true? And you can tell where you might have come up with something brilliant that you didn't even think of. Like you might have not thought, oh, wow, yeah, he does have a secret hidden agenda. I need to take advantage of that, right? Or where you have stuff that's weak. You might have two characters in here. One of them might not be as strong as the other. And you can tell that just simply by looking at their profile, right? On top of that, what this gives you now is the ability to take this and say, okay, let me go through and look at all of this character's dialogue and their actions and see if they really are coming from their character profiles. Now, then it gave us the structure. And again, it's another chance. Here's Act 1, here's Act 2, here's Act 3. It's another chance to look and see, yes, it did get my story. And if it didn't, then you can check to see, oops, did I write the script in a way that people don't get it, or, was something else missing? Then it gave a whole list of ideas for improvement. Here's 5 different ideas for improving the structure. Now, some people don't think the structure is important. I'm going to tell you, I've interviewed a lot of readers in this industry, and they are looking for your structure. Is it strong? Because it makes a difference for the audience, and it makes a difference also for their reputation. So they're going to find it. So you need to make sure this structure is strong. So these improvements, that's important. Anytime you can find ways to improve it, do it. Then it talks to us about the read of the script. Does it deliver on the main purpose? Does it have suspense and anticipation? And does it flow well? And then here's more improvement. It tells you the quality, the best scenes. Here are the 5 best scenes. Here are the 5 that need improvement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I would be paying attention to that and see if there's anything you can do to improve those scenes that might make a big difference. On dialogue, It says, take a look at this. Approximately 70% of the dialogue comes directly from the character profiles. That's pretty close to a professional level. You know, most of the writing that you see in contest, people didn't know, they didn't even have a character profile. They had no idea what they were writing. A lot of the lines are generic and those kinds of things. In this case, his writing, 70% came from the character profiles. That means that dialogue fits who they are as a unique character. Now, 70% is a pretty good number. It's very strong. If you up that to 80, that'd be professional level. And then it gives ideas for improvement on how to do that. Finally, same thing with description. 80% of his description is concise, visual, and in present tense. Okay, that is at a professional level. So that's pretty strong. And it again gives ideas for improvement. Gives some comps here. His comps, A Few Good Men, Born Identity, 3 Days of the Condor. All right, it fits into that world. And finally, the list of all the recommended improvements all in one place so that he can just take those and just go straight down that list, make whatever changes he chooses to. Now that you've seen that, let me just show you one more. This is opening scene. And this particular opening scene, I've already run through this 3 times. So it has the scene here. And by the way, when you're looking at this, this isn't how I put it in. I put it in with, it looks formatted. But when AI does it, you know, they just put it all in a big blob. And then here's the feedback. So it gives a list overall, the structure, tells what it thinks of the structure of the scene. Is it challenging? Does it deliver character, action, dialogue? Is it interesting? Does it have depth? Does it deliver on the genre? And in this case, since it's an opening scene, does it launch the story? So that's all the good points. This is a scene that I have run through this probably 3 times. So it should be pretty good. For improvement, its job is to give 3 to 10 ideas for improvement. When I first ran this scene through, it gave me 10. The second time, I think it gave me 6. The third time it was, 4, and now we're at 3. So it's made a big difference, and the scene has gotten better and better with every single step. But I just wanted you to see how this is. I would now take a look at this. I haven't looked at it yet because I just ran this. I would take a look at these 3 things and see, are there any of them that I think I need to do to improve this opening scene? Because your opening scene is incredibly important to your success. Now, let's just see just for a moment. So finally, basically, here, what this is, we tried to make this as simple as possible so that all you had to do was figure out which button to push and go there. Again, if you're trying to write a screenplay, you go here. If you're just trying to get feedback, you go here. And then to make it as easy as possible for you to determine what kind of feedback do you want, so that, you just look through, and if it's one of the smaller ones, characters, structure, outline, opening scene, any of those, or if it's a full script feedback, you can have feedback anytime with this system, 24 hours a day. And if you want to be obsessive, you can get feedback on something like your characters, improve them, put them back in, improve them, put them back in. By the time you get to the end of that, if you're paying attention, first, you will have learned things. Second, your characters will have become amazing for your particular project. So that's what this is about. It's every single step doing the things that will make your writing incredible. Now, let me just show you this last part so you know. So this is all the stuff. It looks like a lot, but first, in this program, or in this system, we have all of our best classes. Writing Incredible Movies, this is a $1,300 class. Binge-worthy, same thing. The genre classes are $200 each. The pro rewrite class is $350. The 30-day screenplay class, if you want to learn how to write a script in 30 days, is $199, and we have a whole bunch more on that. On feedback, you can get feedback at any time. You can get full script feedback or pilot feedback or any of these. This is something that we're changing the paradigm on this thing about feedback. You no longer have to wait a week or a month to get your feedback. You no longer have to worry about whether the person has a bad attitude. Our feedback is all positive, it's healthy, it's designed to make you a better writer. You also don't have to worry about whether or not the person had a different opinion about whatever your story is about. All of this, just ask yourself, what if you went through this and took one script and ran it through the whole thing, picked the best class for it, whatever it is, used that to elevate it, then went and got feedback at every single step and elevated that project? What kind of a difference would it make for you? So, as a founding member, we started in the beginning thinking $129 for this system to be part of this, right? $129 a month. And we thought that because the bigger classes, especially the Writing Incredible Movies and Binge-worthy, are both at if you were doing a writing or a payment plan, they're both at 140 or above. We just ended up bringing in the first group of people. They paid $79 for it. And we've gone through a whole series of tests with them. And they're paying $79 a month, and it's well worth it. You're getting basically about $7,000 worth of screenwriting classes that you have access to. And the feedback probably at minimum would be somewhere between $400 to $500 a month on that. For the first 30 on this, and we're actually only going to let 30 in right now, we're giving it to you for $49 a month. And as a founding member, you will get this for $49 a month for as long as you stay with us. If for some reason you left and came back, then it'll be $79. So right now you can get in for $49 a month. This is what you spend on going out to dinner at a mid-level restaurant. And for that same amount, you could double the quality of your writing in the next 2 or 3 months. You could take almost any project you have right now, take it in there, get feedback, look to see what do you need to improve that skill set, go back and get feedback again, get feedback on the characters, put them back in the script. There's so many different ways you can improve yourself at a really high level and make a difference. You get the intensive class, so you can join one of these intensive classes, which is Binge-worthy or Writing Incredible Movies or the Pro Rewrite class, whichever you need. So you get that, and then you get a 30-day class each month and all of the 10-day classes. And then you get feedback on anything you need and 3 full scripts per month. But these, I think you're able to do a lot more than that. And here's all you got to do to join us. Go to, just write this down right now, bit.ly, bit.ly /master screenwriting. bit.ly, bit.ly /master screenwriting. Go put that in your browser where you normally put a web address, click return, enter your information, and start this adventure. The moment you start this, your writing begins improving. Every single thing in here is about making you a great writer, if that's what you're looking to do. So join us, because it will change what's possible for you as a writer. It'll take 2 things that most people have issues with. And one of them is brainstorming stuff under the surface in their script. Most people are good at brainstorming scenes and brainstorming some characters and that kind of stuff, but we are great at brainstorming what's under the surface, and that will change who you are as a writer in a big way. The second thing that it takes is it takes this thing about feedback, which is probably one of the areas that most people have problems. They've either had negative feedback that has shut them down. They've had times when they couldn't get feedback, times when somebody else said they would exchange feedback with them and then didn't, or somebody gave them feedback that sent them in the wrong direction. We don't have any of those problems. The moment that you join us here, now feedback becomes the thing that is most predictable for you, that is the most helpful for you, and continually moves you forward as a writer and moves your project forward. So again, right now for the first 30, you guys get in for $49 a month. I don't know what we're going to do after that. I think this is, when we get to the next 30, we'll decide. I don't know if it's going to go up to 59 or if it's going to go back to 79. But overall, this is going to be the price from this point on is $79. So if you want to, make a big change in your potential as a writer and your chance of success, just click this link and you're in. So thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I can tell you already, the people who have taken full advantage of this are blown away by it. We had a writer in England who said, well, I'll try it with just one thing. And she did, and came back to us and said, I want to be part of this from now on. She's already gone through 3 months. She's taken 4 classes during that period of time. She's gotten feedback on 5 different scripts during that period of time. And she says it has completely changed who she is as a writer. So if you want to accomplish that, just again, write down the link, bit.ly, bit.ly/masterscreenwriting.com. And just ask yourself, what would happen if you went through that process that she had? What kind of a difference would it make for who you are as a writer doing this? And I promise you, it'll be amazing. So with that, this is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, wishing you the best, and I'll see you on the inside. Bye-bye, everyone.